So glad to see you again. We have a guest reader tonight. This is Coconut. He's going to be reading one of our selections. You notice he got a nice haircut today. He wanted to be in the video. Cokes, you still want to read your book? Oof. Oh, he's scared. Maybe next time. You're probably wondering, oh, Miss Huber, you look like you're wearing the same thing you had on yesterday. And if you thought that, you're right. You might see it a couple more days too. All right, couple jokes for you. You know I'm bad at remembering them. Why did the shrimp never share its treasure?
Why?
Because it was a little shellfish. What's the other? Oh, why is Cinderella bad at soccer?
Why?
Because she's always running away from the ball. All right, boys and girls. Tonight, we're going to read for our first book. Whoa! Sorry, Coke. That was close. I know we have just finished celebrating Dr. Seuss and all of his books. This is called What Pet Should I Get? It's actually one that I forgot Caroline borrowed from our library, and I've been getting late notices on. Yeah, we found it in her room. So What Pet Should I Get? By Dr. Seuss. Coconut, feel free to chime in. We want a pet, we want a pet. What kind of pet should we get? Dad said we could have one. Dad said he would pay. I went to the pet shop. I went there with Kay. And so we went in. Mr. Huber would not be saying yes to that. He did not even want.
No.
I took one fast look. I saw a fine dog who shook hands, so we shook. So I said, I want him. But then Kay saw a cat. She gave it a pat, and she said, I want that. Then Kay said, now what do you think we should do? Dad said to pick one. We cannot take home two. Then what do you know? We saw two other kinds. Now how could Kay and I make up our minds? A pup and a kitten, they looked like good fun. Now which would we pick? We could only pick one. That's why Mr. Huber doesn't let us go, because the last time Grace and I went to the shelter, we came home with two cats. The cat or the dog, the kitten, the pup. Oh boy, it is something to make a mind up. Then I looked all around. I saw something with wings. I said, look at him. We could pick one that sings. But then, look over there, said my sister Kay. We can go home with a rabbit today. And then I looked at Kay and I said, what will we do? I like all the pets that I see. So do you. We have to pick one and pick it out soon. You know Mother told us to be back by noon. And I could have done it. I could have, I bet. I could have said, what pet should we get? But you know what Kay did? Do you know what she did? She said, fish, 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 fish. It may be a fish. A fish is the pet that I wish. And then I saw I saw a new kind, and they were good too. How could I pick one? Now what should we do? We could only pick one. That's what my dad said. But how could I make up my mind in my head? Pick a pet fast. Pick out one soon. Mother and Dad said, I've got to be home by noon. It says, make up your mind. The time may be now to make up my mind. But who knows what other good pets I might find. I might find a new one, a fast kind of thing, who would fly around my head in a ring on a string. Yes, that would be fun, but our house is so small, and this thing on a string would bump into the wall, and my mother, I know, would not like that at all. So maybe some other good kind of pet, another kind maybe is what we should get. We might find a new kind, a pet who is tall, a tall pet who fits, and a space that is small. My mother might like this pet, best of all. If we had a big tent, then we would be able to take home a yent. Dad would like us to have a good yent. But how do I know he would pay for a tent? So you see how it is when you pick out a pet? How can you make up your mind what to get? But, Coconut, please pay attention. You do not roll on the carpet during story time. Oh, boys and girls, you're going to have to teach him. Sadie Jane, very good job. Coconut, that is how you should be acting. Good girl. What if we took one of each kind of pet? Then our house would be full of the pets we would get. No, Dad will be mad. We can only have one. If we do not choose, we will end up with none. I will do it right now. I will do it, I said. I will make up the mind, and that's up in my head. The dog or the rabbit, the fish or the cat, I picked out one fast, and then that was that. Oh, and they don't even tell us which one. So you guys have to try to figure out and guess which one they got. If you want to make a guess, have your mom and dad make a comment under our video, and then I'll let you know. Yeah, can't show you the rest. All right, and our last book, I know the first one was kind of long. It's called Moustache by Margie Palatini and illustrated by Henry Cole. Remember, the author is who wrote the text, and the illustrator is who drew the pictures, or painted, or colored. The author made a dedication. We've talked about dedication pages. It says, "To my dear, with the 5 o'clock shadow, and to Dan, Caroline, and Jim, with love." And they were from the author and the illustrator. Moose had a problem. A horrible, hairy, prickly problem. It grew right below his nostrils and just above his upper lip. A moustache. Now, not a few spare hairs or shy little stubble, no mere weak, wandering whiskers on the upper lip of this moose. No siree. Moose had a big, bushy, bristly, mighty moustache. But a moustache that was burly, surly, and a mangy mess. And it itched a lot. Sure, he plucked and he tweezed. He even clipped, snipped, and teased, but his combs were still cowards and his brushes rebelled. His scissors simply surrendered. And they're waving their flag. We give up. Can't do it anymore. Moose was in a frizzy tizzy. The moustache was completely crimping his style. He was a great hoofer, but he could barely bop and hip-hop with a moustache going a flip-flop. He was a wonderful chef, but he simply could not flambe his souffle with all of those whiskers in his way. And he was a daring skier, but how could he downhill race with the mighty moustache blowing in his face? Moose had to do something, and soon. But what? After days and days of much serious thought, Moose got an idea. He crossed some hair here, he crossed some hair there, and he tied his moustache around his neck. It is now a moose scarf. It seemed to be the ideal answer to his problem. It was so simple, so easy, so perfectly perfect. But then, his moustache got knotted and mangled and horribly tangled, and those hundreds of hairs still prickled and tickled, and worse, Moose could barely take a breath with all of that moustache wrapped around his neck. So Moose untied, unwrapped, unknotted, and gulped in some fresh air. He got another idea. He parted some hair this way, he parted some hair that way, and he heaped all of that moustache on top of his head. Moustache! Mustachioed antlers seemed to be the ideal answer to his problem. It was so simple, so easy, so perfectly perfect, until a squadron of squirrels and one very nosy gopher moved right into the Moose Motel. They huddled and hoarded, and furrowed in and burrowed out, and needless to say, it became quite crowded up there on Moose's head, and heavy, and messy, and very, very noisy. The squirrely chitting and chatting squeals and squawks woke Moose every morning before the crack of dawn, and that gopher was giving the Moose one hairy headache. Moose needed his sleep. He needed his rest. He needed his privacy. Mustachioed antlers. Nuts, said Moose. So he unparted, unpiled, untwisted, and untwined and said, adios to those hairy horns. Notice, remember we've talked about how the author has a more difficult time getting his expression and feelings out on paper, and so he'll change his font. He might bold it or use different fonts, and this author does this a lot. He writes the text not in straight lines. I like how he does that. But now, what? The miserable Moose took hold of a hunk of hair and he wrestled it, and then roped it and tethered and tied and tamed, and aha, a moose tail. And now that was so simple. It was so easy. It was not so perfectly perfect. Talk about a dizzy-do. Moose didn't even know if he was coming or going. Backward, forward, this way, that way. He didn't even know which end was which. Moose had to bail on that tail. And so he thought and thought, and he thought some more, but no other idea was a worthy winner. Braids were a bother. A moustache sweater? Too sweltering. A net? Not. Poor Moose. His problem was truly terrible, unbearable, just downright sad. He felt so alone, and he didn't know what else to do. Then, call it fate, call it destiny. It was probably dumb luck. But one day, Moose tripped on his moustache and just had no time to duck. Woof! Pardon me, they both said as they bumped. And then they blinked, and they stared, and their hearts went thump-a-thump. She was a moose with a bouffant, so bodacious, outrageous. It was just plain old big, hair after hair piled higher than high, a skyscraping dew of glorious curls, a tower of swirling twists and twirls. She was simply splendid, stupendous, and absolutely superb. Of course, Moose had to ask how she did what she did to get such a do. Miss Moose winked and then whispered, "It's just a little glue." So she helped he fearlessly plunge a hoof into a fat pot of the white gooey goop, and carefully, oh so carefully, they glopped and they plopped and they pasted and they pressed. They coaxed and curled every truly unruly wayward whisker. Around and around they tweaked and twirled those horrible hairs, until Moose's once mangy mess was now a wondrous winding wave of marvelous moustache. Moose gazed in the mirror and smiled a broad, moosey smile. He was so happy, so glad, just giddy with glee. He looked dashing and handsome. Moose gushed, "Is that really me?" With not a care for one hair, the moose pair boogied and bopped. They skied downhill, even uphill, and their cooking was hot, hot, hot. Mm-hmm. So, of course, it wasn't long after that Moose and his moustache and his beautiful bride foxtrotted and tangled and waltzed down the aisle. Good hair days, bad hair days, they vowed to love and to cherish, and with hearts heaped with love and pots filled with goop, they both sighed, "I do, glue," and promised never to part. It was so simple, so easy, so perfectly perfect, and it stuck. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed your stories tonight. I miss you guys. Remember, be helpful to your parents as much as you can. Be nice and kind to your brother and sister if you have one. And oh, I wanted to congratulate you because I got an email from Epic and over 50 books have been read just since I sent out the email. So way to go. I can check in and see who's been reading. So good job. And if you haven't, parents, if you've not received the email, please let me know. Some of them, I went by the cards, I couldn't read them as well. So I put in the best I could. So if you don't get one, please let me know and I will have you give me the correct email if I did send an incorrect one. So I hope you all are staying safe and healthy and not going stir crazy. So, all right, I'll see you tomorrow night, boys and girls. Love you.